Hello everyone and welcome to another video. My name's Keir Smith and for today's video I'd like to talk about an album released by Paul Weller back in 1995, Stanley Road. Stanley Road is arguably Paul Weller's most popular album, but what is deemed to be a band or artist's most popular album does not mean best. You see these, what I think are generic best of lists popping up on the internet almost every day now by some band or artist. And if you were to search a list of Paul Weller's best albums, then you would more than likely find Stanley Road at the top of the list. But it's an album that I've tried with over the years, but I've never really warmed to. I went back and listened to it again today because I'd not heard it for maybe, I don't know, a year or two, but every time I go back to this album, I get pretty much the same feeling. One of frustration, really. I mean, they can't all be good, can they? But this one has always irked me, and I guess it irks me because, like I say, I see it at the top of these best of Paul Weller lists all of the time, and no, I disagree strongly. So Stanley Road was released back in 1995, Paul Weller's third solo studio album. He'd had success with his self-titled debut album and even more success with the follow-up, the excellent Wildwood album. And so I guess momentum was building and there was a fair bit of anticipation for Paul Weller's next album. And Stanley Road was released in May 1995 when the whole Britpop scene was building up a head of steam. And the music press dubbed Paul Weller the mod father after being cited as a big influence on bands like Oasis and many others. And Stanley Road was released at a time when singles really drove an album up the charts. And there were 4 big hit singles released from Stanley Road: Out of the Sinking, The Changing Man, You Do Something to Me and Broken Stones. I think The Changing Man and You Do Something to Me both went top 10 in the UK, and Out of the Sinking and Broken Stones were both top 20. And normally, and as was the case with Stanley Road, you'd get a single to promote the album, which was Out of the Sinking, and then you'd get the following 3 singles released over a 9 to 12 month period, which would help to drive sales of the album and give the album its longevity. And at any point during that time, any one of those singles could change the fortunes of an album's progress completely. And a good example of that would be Robbie Williams' debut album, Life Through a Lens. After leaving Take That, there was naturally a bit of fuss over his debut single, which I think was a cover version of George Michael's Freedom. Then he released another song, Old Before I Die, which didn't chart quite as well as Freedom. Then he released another single which didn't chart as well as the one before, and another one that charted around about 30, I think. Anyway, the point I'm making here is that album was sinking like a stone. Then he released Angels and, well, the album flew up the charts, sold millions, and the rest is history, I guess. But with Stanley Road, it was slightly different because each single appeared to do well at the time and drove sales of Stanley Road, making it a consistent performer and a mainstay on the album charts. But popular singles do not necessarily make a great album. But then what happens is the album sells a lot, it flies up the charts, it has big singles attached to it, and it's then written forevermore that that's the band or artist's peak moment, and therefore it must be their best work. And these generic lists that I spoke of get written and rewritten and written once again, and you sit there and you scroll up and down the list and you sort of find yourself nodding along and saying, well, yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, that was very popular. Yeah, most people tend to go for that one. And it almost ends up cast in stone that you can't possibly think that anything is better than that. It sold loads. Everyone loved it. It's got them big hit singles on it. It's great. It's his best work. Absolutely not. So I'd like to take you through the Stanley Road album now, track by track, and tell you what I think of each track. There are 12 tracks on the album, 4 were released as singles, as I said. Now, let's just say that all 4 of these singles are fantastic. That still only makes up 33.3333% of the album, so we're still looking for at least another 45, maybe even 50% to take it right up there to the top. So the opening track is the second single released from the album, The Changing Man, which I think is a great song. A real gutsy vocal from Weller and a really great guitar solo. I mean, the song borrows its tune almost in its entirety from the ELO song Overture 10538, but it's still a great Paul Weller song. If I was to go through all of Paul Weller's albums and compile a best of collection for myself, then The Changing Man would most definitely be on there. So then we come to the next track on the album, an album track if you like, Porcelain Gods. And this has a similarly gritty vocal in the verses, but then it reclines into the chorus when Weller sings how disappointed I was to turn out, after all, just a porcelain god that shatters when it falls. And I guess that lyric is designed to match the kind of languid musicianship around that chorus. But I've always found this song rather forgettable and not very good. But moving on, we come to the next track on the album, I Walk on Gilded Splinters, which is a cover version of a Dr. John song. I'd never heard the original and I didn't know it was a cover version when I got this album, but again, I find this song rather uninspiring, a kind of turgid, semi-bluesy affair. I always feel like it's kind of reaching for something, but it never really gets there. There's a cool little jam at the end of the track, but again, I don't find it to be much of a song. It doesn't do much for me. But much better is just around the corner with the next track on the album, another single released. I think it was the third single released after Out of the Sinking and The Changing Man, the beautiful You Do Something To Me. And this is a lovely piano-led ballad with a suitably soulful and yearning vocal from Weller. I love the chords and I love the sound and tone of that guitar solo when it breaks out. That's fantastic. And I do like that lyric, I'm dancing through the fire just to catch a flame and feel real again. I love this song. I think it's a perfectly written ballad, and again, this would be on my Paul Weller best of. Next up is Woodcutter's Son, and again, this is a bit of a turgid affair as far as I'm concerned. It's a semi-rocker, and Weller sings rather jovially, and if it comes to the crunch, then I'm the woodcutter's son, and I'm cutting down wood for the good of everyone. And I think it's also worth pointing out that Stanley Road was released at a time when the CD format was the format to own, and you could cram up to as many as 77 to 80 minutes of music on a CD. And albums around this time did become bloated, not just by Paul Weller, by many, many artists and bands. And so songs like the aforementioned Porcelain Gods, I Walk on Gilded Splinters, and this, Woodcutter's Son, were passing the 4-minute mark and going on to 5 minutes, and I think even past that. They were outstaying their welcome. They could have been tidied up into much better 3.5 minute songs. So on to track 6, Time Passes, and this is nice enough. A nice piano-led tune with sympathetic guitar parts. It's kind of nostalgic, a nice vocal from Weller. It's nice enough, if, again, for me, a little uninspiring, but a decent song. So at the halfway point here, as you can tell, I'm struggling a little bit because we've got 2 great hit singles, no doubt about that, 3 rather forgettable affairs, and saved with track 6 by Time Passes, which, as I've just said, is nice enough. So on to track 7, which is the title track, and this is, again, nice enough. It's a rather jaunty affair, an upbeat piano tune with short stabs of guitar. That arrangement always makes me think of Van Morrison's Moondance. It has that kind of dang, 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 dang. I almost want to sing, it's a fabulous night for a moon dance. Now, I'm normally a big fan of Paul Weller's lyrics. He's wrote so many great songs. But again, the lyrics on this album seem a little trite and tired. Like on this song, for example. I mean, they're okay. The summer nights that seem so long always call me back to return as I rewrite the song. The ghosts of night, the dreams of day, make me swirl and fall and hold me in their sway. Like I've not heard something very, very similar 50 times before. But admittedly, I'm being a little overcritical here. Stanley Road is a good tune. On to the next track on the album, the beloved, boring Broken Stones. You can find many a live performance from Paul Weller where he's happily bopping away on his organ there, playing out this rather dull and tired song if you ask me. And he's played it live loads and loads of times. There's absolutely nothing to this song for me, and I think that maybe some fans draw some kind of profound meaning from the song, like pebbles on a beach, kicked around, displaced by feet, like broken stones, all trying to get home. Now I could sit here and be more forgiving of this track. I mean, it's inoffensive, people seem to like it, but it's so slight and there's nothing really to it, and it does bug me that it's seen to be a popular Weller song, but honestly, it bores me and I can't have it. Another single is next, Out of the Sinking, which is a good song, a good rocker. It's got a bit of punch to it, not least from the excellent drumming on the track. It's a driving guitar track that has a bit of conviction, let's say. It's a good song, nothing more. Pink on White Walls is next, and again, this is a little bit slight for me. Whimsical, which I've no problem with. It's happy enough in its work, but again, this is average stuff from Weller. Whirlpool's End is next, and this is a great track. I love this. It starts off slow and gentle and progressively builds throughout the song to a quite epic ending, with the stereo panning creating this almost psychedelic swirl around it. I love Weller's, again, gutsy vocal here. Love the shalala parts too. I think it runs at over 7.5 minutes long, but doesn't outstay its welcome. The guitar playing and the solo, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Along with The Changing Man and You Do Something to Me, I'll say that this is my favourite song on the album. I think it's great. And that brings us to the closing track, the dreadful Wings of Speed. I don't like soul and gospel, not in rock music anyway. It all seems terribly forced, like you're trying to crowbar it in there and serve it up to us as, I don't know, it just comes off too forced for me. The tune itself, again, is not bad at all, I guess, but then you get that shrill vocal from Carleen Anderson. I mean, you get the full gospel effect there, and no, I don't like it. And I'm sure there are many Weller fans that own Stanley Road that rather like this soulful gospel thing, but no, it doesn't work for me. And again, the lyrics are a little tired if you ask me. Fly on wings of speed that will bring you home to me. I'll never be free from the darkness I see as I wait for your smile. Now again, forgive me, maybe I'm being a little overcritical. I mean, it's not a bad lyric, it's just a rather obvious one, let's say. And I've never seen Paul Weller as an obvious artist. He doesn't write average stuff for me. He writes interesting stuff, even if it's not great. I'm always interested to hear what he's got to say. And that's the problem with Stanley Road for me. It's an album that's got passable tunes on it, passable songs, but it's a little bit boring for me. I've always struggled with it. And I don't like to knock my favourite artists, and of all of the bands and artists that I'm into, Paul Weller, The Jam, The Style Council and his solo stuff, he's rewarded me greatly as the listener. But at best, all I could say about Stanley Road is, that is average Paul Weller. The Changing Man, You Do Something to Me, Whirlpool's End, all great, absolutely love them. Time Passes and Stanley Road, both decent enough, I'll take them. Out of the Sinking, I rather like. It's a good song, as I said. But the rest of it, yeah, you can keep that. Like I said, beware, most popular does not mean best. Absolutely not. I think another thing is that I much prefer the run of albums that he released after Stanley Road. I think the next 7 or 8 albums there were largely very good, if not great. Heavy Soul I thought was good. Heliocentric, maybe even slightly more so. I liked Illumination, As Is Now was really good. Then he really kicked on with 22 Dreams, which I thought was fantastic. A long, sprawling, I think 22 track album. I thought Wake Up the Nation was fantastic. One of Weller's best for me. I really liked Sonic Kicks, and Saturn's Pattern is perhaps, I'll say my favourite Paul Weller solo album. So I'm afraid that Paul Weller's Stanley Road is low down on my list of favourite Weller albums. Perhaps I'll do a video someday where I rank all of Paul Weller's albums, much like those annoying generic lists, and argue against them. But I'd love to know your thoughts too. Please leave any comments down below on Paul Weller's Stanley Road album. But thanks so much as always for stopping by and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you for my next video sometime soon. Until then, bye for now.